Oh, Bob's not here either.
No, Bob's down there.
Oh, here. There you were.
I sneaked in behind you.
I see.
Is there a copy of the agenda?
All right.
Sure, I don't know.
Can we go ahead and call the meeting to order? And we have a new member tonight.
Hi.
Michael, maybe we could just go around and say who we are and
Okay.
and say hello, if that's all right. I'm Gail Erdheim.
You can start.
Sure. Why not? I live here in Waldoboro, have lived here for, I guess, 6 or 7 years now. I think you and I know someone in common.
We all know people in common.
Yeah, and I think you went to school with my daughter. Actually.
Oh, that's well, that's a different one. Okay, you can tell me later.
Lena Eckert Erdheim says to tell you hello.
Oh, okay. Wow.
That is a small room.
It is so small, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Patty Facio, Michael and I have met.
Yep.
Yeah. New to Waldoboro a couple of years. Welcome.
I'm Max, I'm the town planner. And to avoid the same thing, I'm not gonna call you Conrad this time.
Oh, yeah, I
Like
heard you called him Michael. Yeah.
Barbara Boardman, we've met Michael. I've been in town since 2000. And yeah, so we know each other from the Waldo.
Carl Solberg, retired here 10 years ago from Delaware.
Jim Letning, been around for, I don't know, a long time,
Centuries.
centuries, yeah, family wise.
Marcus Benna, Recreation Director, grew up here. Bob Butler, I've been here about 19 years.
Janet McMahon, and also been here for twice that actually. but-
Mike there, you know me, I did-
Twice that is long.
Yeah.
And I've been here since 2016.
So I'll just give a very brief introduction. I'm Michael Amico. Nice to meet you. We moved here, well, really this fall, full time. And why am I here tonight? Because I just want to be involved in the town, and this is one of the committees that you can volunteer for. And Conrad, my husband, is on the economic development committee. Thank you. And so I'm mostly here, just to feel out how the town works and meet people and hear what people have to say and how things work. Although I am very interested in public spaces, specifically their historical nature and how we read history in any one place, even if there's no important historic event that happened there, or there's no monument or something like that. Nonetheless, how do you make people aware of the presence of like different pasts that continue to inform the present? And obviously this site has various histories, and you're full along planning it. So I know I'm coming in at a very late stage. So again, I'm happy to give whatever thoughts I can, but I understand, I'm not, here at the beginning. But yeah, I'm just interested in being involved, meeting people, listening, and thinking about history and public spaces.
Good.
Welcome.
I'm lucky that someone's been here shorter than I have been. It's been a really short time. So am I supposed to go next, Gail?
Unless someone feels the need to change the agenda.
Do we need to approve the
Oh,
minutes?
right, thank you. God, it's the rain. I don't think we have any citizens. We have a couple basketballs, but you're not talking.
I'm a basketball.
Would you like to be a citizen? Or would you prefer to be a basketball?
Well, yeah, that's
All right. All right.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. I found them amazingly accurate.
Yeah, they were
Here,
excellent.
here.
Thank you. They spelled your name once, but otherwise.
Second it.
I actually had a question.
Oh,
What did I misspell?
oh, Carl, you did it right most of the time, so it's fine. We knew who it was.
Okay, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had a question before we approve them. In the next steps on page 2,
Okay.
there was a note that Max was going to request a full proposal from the guy who sent in the initial sort of proposal. Are we going to do that, or were we just going to issue a new RFP?
Oh, I thought this point was we were gonna issue the new RFP
Right.
so that this person has a
So-
chance to
Chance
submit a
to.
Okay.
proposal.
right.
Okay.
So I thought you were specifically going to contact.
That'd be great. I think we just left that one out.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Second it.
All in favor?
I
Am I on this? committee? Am I supposed to vote?
Do you want to be?
You want to be?
Yes,
Do I have to get interviewed?
you have to get approved.
That's right.
You gotta go
You
through
have
the
to get
process.
approved.
Like we're
All right, let's
just.
be that for 2020.
All right. Anyone opposed to accepting the minutes with that one change of Mr. Chapman not getting a separate invitation to resubmit? Okay. Minutes approved. No talking basketballs. So over to Barbara.
Okay. Max, can you put up Jan's aerial for me? And how does this work as far as the recording goes? I go up there and point. Is it
The,
show up on the?
it's already showing this, like the recording is gonna have this flat screen right there.
Yeah.
And then, like, you'll see our little box right there in the
Yeah.
corner. It's gonna be, it should be like in the corner down here later. But I'll also be moving the mouse around too. Or you can move the mouse around.
No, I'm gonna go up there and stand, because I like to be there.
Wherever you point is where I'll put the mouse.
And we don't have a laser pointer, huh?
We did not. I
Would you like one for Christmas?
I have one, just didn't know I needed it today.
Okay. All right, so as you guys know, here's our crazy situation. And we have a very good topo plan. Tell me if I'm not speaking loud enough.
Yeah, I was about to say, Julie is on Zoom right now remotely. So Julie, if you can't hear, just feel free to please speak up at any point.
I can hear you.
Okay, great. So we got a lot going on here, and when you look at the topo map and the plan submitted, I guess Advance conducted it, there's a lot of stuff in infrastructure and test pits and test wells and et cetera all over the place. Some of which, well, I don't really know how much is like for perpetuity or how much for boreholes that we can now cover over because the bore has been taken, we have the test results, and so it's a lot, I don't know. So I had to make some assumptions. So bear with me. So I did two versions. One is pretty much straightforward, taking, you know, into account what we have here, which is kind of tough to deal with. We've got this L-shaped building with this bump here. This is actually lower in grade than this. This is all about level. But when you get to here, these ends, we've got at least a 4-foot change of grade on some of these corners, so it's quite a drop. From here to here, I believe all the former walls were just pushed over the edge to kind of take up the difference there. So it's just all rubble. It's okay if I touch this screen.
Yeah.
Screen
As long as you don't destroy it.
I don't have sharp nails. So rubble, and you know, basically quite a bit of rubble all over the place. Now, in terms of designing solutions to this, I don't know how the encapsulation works. Are they going to come along and remove this rubble, come along, drop down, come along, drop down to grade, continue, and then deal with all the water draining issues? Are they going to remove the beds that are there, come down off the sidewalls, and then come into the asphalt? Or can planting beds that have been here, can they stay, et cetera, et cetera? A lot of questions. So the first plan And, you know, basically we're going from high to low, so there's generally a water flow towards the river, which of course was the original problem, which we hope that will get addressed and changed. Because if all this is encapsulated, Max, the site has to have a new stormwater drainage system, right? What does that look like? Does that look like behind Family Dollar where you have big gravel pit to collect and slow things down? And if that's the case, then it's a big design element and we should know something about it. It could be something that's below grade, possibly. It'd be nice to know, because when I think about this being totally encapsulated, heading towards the river, that's telling me that it's getting captured somewhere before it hits the river. So plan A, and so you guys all earlier kind of came up with some preliminary things. This being kept as a service road, which makes sense. This continuing being the main entrance, which makes sense. And this being all sports courts or sports types of activities on this platform. What happens with this platform is that you know, once some of the rubble is taken out, debris is taken out, and whatnot, we've got these 4-foot walls. So we've got kind of an amalgam of some 10-foot high chain link fence for the courts, the basketball courts and all that stuff. And the other areas can be more like a 42-inch fencing of some kind. So if this became, for instance, a kid play area, or I keep thinking about rollerblading. Does anybody rollerblade anymore? We're gonna have this flat surface. Anyway, we're gonna need to protect people from spilling off the edges onto the grade below. So it's a funny combination of tall fences and shorter fences. And I tried to do what I could with it. So the preliminary plan, which is the one you're gonna favor, Julie, because I do have a plan B, but bear with me.
Do I need to swap to the other picture?
No, that's okay, I can keep that. Okay, and I'm sorry that this table is bigger than, and I should just photograph this. Right now. But anyway, hopefully you can all see it. Can you see from back there?
Well, yeah.
I took the Sylvania plan and increased, this is the area that Max wants answers to right away for the pine tree design thing. So this is 1 inch equals 40. Basically what happens, there's that row of red maples that we all like, and the entrance is still as is. What happens with this plan is that you can come in and park here, enter up onto the platform here, or come around to some back area parkings and come up a ramp to this is a lower area than this, come up to some kind of activity areas. I was thinking actually could be a place for tables, to flat again, and then up a ramp again. And this brings you to the other events, either possibly kids play, or coming around basketball, 2 tennis courts. One of them could become pickleball courts. And then the center between these two.
Mind if we just tilt this so that the camera back there can see it?
Okay, or you can photo it and send it to Julie.
Yeah.
Basically between these two courts is kind of a collection of benches. It's kind of a social area. You come up, maybe you're changing clothes, or you're waiting for a court or whatever. And then this area here, it seems there's a little hut, and there's 2 dog huts on that. So those are things that I think, but maybe PW5 can go under something. But these 3 things I think are going to remain. So we've got this funny odd area back here, but I was thinking, since it's going to be a smooth surface, why not put the ice rink there, for instance? And then you'd have a place, benches where you could sit and put on your skates and skate there. Or when this is seasonal, right? You put it away in the summertime. Then this could become a rollerblading kind of area, or place for for that type of skating. But anyway, this, you come in here, you come in here, this is a little bit of a social place, go play sports, or come and sit and watch the kids play. So this is kind of what we've got. The only thing I've kind of stretched a little bit is this funny concrete thing here. I'm hoping this can become some kind of raised bed, so just to break up the mass of all that. Oh, it's gone. All that parking in the back. And then basically the lot, and there's a lot of parking here. I think the total on this plan is 160 spaces. And this would become the service here. This could become some service parking, vehicles, trucks or whatnot. This could be the pavilion with a view being out. And this could be another possible location for the ice skating rink, so where you'd sit in the pavilion and change your footwear or whatever. So again, this is seasonal and or this is a small place for this is a lawn for activities later. So it kept all the, existing asphalt edges as is. It's hard to believe that, it's so broken up. It's hard to believe that, anyway, it's going to be treated as an encapsulated area and then raised again with new asphalt, because it seems like this whole thing would be really raised a lot in grade in order to accomplish that. So that is pretty much it. So it's the experience of going in here. It's going to be a lot like what it feels like now, except for it'll be cleaner looking. Hopefully these plant beds can stay, get a little bit of greenery in front of all this stuff. But in a way, this is kind of like plan A, and then it's a little bit of TBD over here, like what to do with this thing is unclear to me at the moment. Working with Morgan on the pathway system. She wants to go out here, which is kind of logical when you're there to start the loop. I'm hoping that we can, and actually that's probably a great place to go sledding eventually up behind Hops's house.
Want me to put up this one that shows the overhead restricted area?
Sure. I would like to work with her on you see that, yeah, on whatever we do here, coming in this way, and basically parking, utilize this wonderful copse of pine trees as being kind of the entrance to the rest of the walkway, the park. So working with, really keeping with the existing edges and hardscape that we're told has to be considered. The whole site has this very weird feeling of yin yang. There's like, incredibly, man-made and then incredibly, other. And so what I want to do is change that somehow. So if anyone has any questions at this point, before I sort of show my plan B, I'd appreciate it.
Did you consider behind the Hofs's house too, or no?
Not really. I want to work with Morgan on the
Okay.
trail, and I assume that's going to stay wild. And the other thing is that they've got all these trails that they're already bush hogging to get to their inspection sites. I mean, that all should be worked into it. If it's being mowed, let's continue to use it as part of the loop and see what makes sense for that. Certainly nothing that I looked at would change what Max was thinking that the subdivision line should be. Right? Were you going off the stone wall that's there for the back lot of the house?
Or
Determining where the back lot of the
Very close to the
the
house.
new lot is?
well, that back lot was only 5,000 square. Are you talking about the 5,000 square feet thing?
I don't know how many square feet it was, but
Well, I
you
mean,
said
that was only when the committee was initially talking about maybe splitting off or selling off the parcel, but I don't think the parcel's being sold off at this point. I'm pretty sure it's all gonna be kept and the building's just gonna be
Ah.
removed. So
Okay,
unless anything's changed since then.
oh, okay, so I
That was the
thought that
thought,
it was gonna become available to do a commercial.
It-
Building on it.
If there's a very interested person who wants to
Please.
build
Yeah.
there, then that's an option, but I haven't received any information about that.
It's the highest and best scenario that we could conceive of at this point, given the
Yeah,
environmental
I
restrictions.
see it as being integral to the park.
Mhm.
To have that 2 acres up along the road as part of it. I mean, at that point, you wanna be towards the river. So if that becomes an asset for the town and down the road to sell that, that would be my recommendation, because otherwise I don't see why you need to be. You don't want people sledding from up here down this way, you want to be going that way, so to privatize that makes sense.
Our thought was though that having control, given that the covenant applies to that. Yeah, and if you have an owner who then doesn't pay attention to the covenant, it could be a liability, especially because it's so close to the park. So if it ends up being carried away or demolished, whatever happens, it's just sort of logical to tie it in rather than. There's just so many restrictions on it. Can't be used for residents, things like that. So it didn't seem like that was a really viable option.
No one's stepping forward anyway.
No, but maybe that'll
So-
change.
So far it's moved.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem to be many test sites up there. And it's 30 feet or so higher than the rest of the site, so it's a for
Yeah.
additional investigation, basically, is that the terminology they're using for that? Actually, they don't have anything on this. What's the hell of this?
How is it identified right now?
It's just
From an environmental standpoint.
So the environmental covenant covers both, the entirety of both lots.
Mhm.
This area that's up at the Haas's house
Yeah,
likely doesn't have any issues, because yeah, all the
Because it-
testing well in the plume is going downhill
right.
towards water, and the Haas's house is above it. But part of it is that, as part of the covenant would require, has to be on, I think it would have to be on water and sewer, because they don't want
Right.
water or a septic tank to be newly installed on there.
Ain't now there lines up that far.
Hmm?
Yes.
The line, well, the line goes,
I'm not,
the
sure.
line, the line goes about here to the mailbox.
Okay. Yeah, it's not quite,
Yeah, it's about, like, I feel you and I were in this, was it 200 feet?
It's close. It's not prohibitively expensive to develop it.
No,
It's
right,
not,
but-
it's not at the house, but it's close.
I guess what I'm saying is that if the Hofstas house can be demolished or whatever happens to it. Can that piece right there become an opportunity
To sell a lot.
to sell
Yes,
the
but
lot?
not as a home,
Not as a home,
not as
but
a residence.
or something other than a garage?
A garage, an office,
want-
An
we
a
would
store.
We would
Right.
want the main DP to hear the offer and then send it to them, because they probably don't want a junkyard there.
No, exactly. But I mean, it doesn't have any wells on it. It doesn't really
Right.
have any
Right,
issues
yeah.
that I'm aware of.
Covenants, unless they're dated shipping goods, Janet, this is the plan. that-
Right.
And I thought was going.
Is there some language?
And there's one, the seller of the
Understood.
property that gave us
Stone
the
wall
town
is.
Mhm.
has a right to approve development on that site.
Oh,
And
that's,
and in this,
is that Germany?
whatever, I think it's Chinese, but
Whatever they are now.
But you know, they're liability averse,
Mhm.
you know, even though the site is clean,
Mhm.
it has a cachet associated with it. So
Yeah, the idea of residence was completely out.
Yeah, no, I understand
Okay.
that, and
Yeah.
that's fine.
But we already talked at length about just cutting off the stone wall lot. And maybe that someday could be used for something else, but to have the boundary be the stone wall.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Okay.
Bob has his hand up.
Barbara, how much footprint did you allow for the pavilion?
This is a very small pavilion.
I
So it's,
I noticed.
it's, about 26 by, 30. Actually, I have it written down there because I knew I was gonna forget it. 26 by 30, 32.
So it's hardly large enough even to host a farmer's market.
No, I
I
was
mean,
thinking
it
the
just
way,
wouldn't do that.
well, the way I was thinking would work is that you would hose these parking lot spaces, these parking spaces, and basically come through the grass, through the building and down. It would become a U-shaped thing at the end of the parking lot, you know, one day a week where these would be hosed for just that kind of use, because there's still plenty of parking. And of course, this won't be here either, so vendors could be along the grass here and then turning as well. So there would be certainly more room than there is here to do it. But it's not ideal, and it almost makes me wonder why bothering building a pavilion down there.
And if, say, the Lions Club or some other group in town wanted to have a picnic and it rained, would they have enough room under
Yeah.
cover to keep
Well-
from getting wet, still have their picnic?
Right, when you look at kind of like, you know, wedding tent information and how much room people need, 6 to 8 square feet per people, so it's still a 75 to 85 people in there, depending on how you're laying people out. And, you know, we could have awnings too, front and back, to, you know, extend it for in the summertime or whatever.
Are you constrained for space? Because, you know, looking at like Moose Point Crossing or the Belfast City Park, theirs were all varied, but somewhat larger.
Only the slope
But could it move on the part? I mean, could,
onto the parking lot.
yeah,
This is the one that we're not doing anything on this is beyond
okay,
the limited area.
all right.
All right, so the one.
Now, if there is, let me just say one thing before
Okay,
I
good.
forget it. You know, if this did become, you know, there was a bump out for restrooms or whatever, or bringing power to it, or although there is power here apparently. Anyway, we have to think about, you know, how do we trench? Can we come right through here to power this, you know, whatever it is. What I do want to say about, sorry, and then, what was your question?
Sorry.
So there's the other thing, the alternative, little alternative here. This piece here, I thought it was not a good idea when I first started this, but now I'm maybe going back to it a little bit. Because this is so semi-dysfunctional, the way it's shaped and all the stuff in it. But it could become, do I have this upside down? It could become the solar. How's the solar? You can see the two long lines of solar on there. There's about 45
yes.
feet front to back. And so you could come through here, or, you know, this is a service entrance park, whatever, you know, you have to do from this side. Maybe this gets fenced off completely. So this is public, this is, you know, town of Waldeboro kind of stuff. And then what I'd like to do in a perfect world, if the forces that be would allow us to, is expand this into, so this becomes a place that kind of breaks up this parking to some extent. There's already a bump here that we have to deal with, concrete X stuff. I think there used to be the propane tanks there. But maybe this could be an area of raised beds, you know, for possibly, you know, pollinators, or introducing stuff, some greenery, and breaking up all this parking. So you could come in and mini parking here to go to the events here, come up the ramp, or this long line is just the dividing line, which I want to talk, well, this is that limit of work that were on those plans. But according to Julie, we should be talking about all the hardscape now as far as being off limits or needing to be capped or encapsulated. But anyway, that's just one thought, is the solar could be over there.
alluded to this at the last meeting.
Mhm,
We keep on talking about adding bentonite. Bentonite isn't cheap.
mhm. None of it's gonna be.
And
Well,
I'm wondering whether it's necessary, and I'm saying that with some trepidation because I was the one that first suggested capping it with bentonite.
Mhm.
I, before we get too down the road here,
Using that as a catch-all word.
yeah, before
this
we
point.
encapsulation,
Yeah.
you might, another impervious surface is asphalt.
Yeah.
So that parking lot is going to have to be repaved anyway.
Mhm.
So is asphalt enough?
Mhm.
I guess
Could
that's
be.
the question.
Yeah.
And would that be an answer that Pine Tree would be able to give us?
So
Or was that, or
The bentonite was something that we brought to the DEP.
correct?
They never said bentonite.
I know, but we're going to
And-
our
and-
engineer.
So
We're going to our engineer.
Julie has
Yeah. I don't want it on the plans as definitely bentonite.
Right.
If there's an alternative, that's just a lot less money.
Is that because
So-
it was used at the transfer station?
so
Julie?
Bentonite was brought up by Mike Thayer, and that became what everybody, I guess, assumed. I don't know why Mike brought it up.
so
Well, originally, the original plan here was a green area,
mhm.
and this is morphed dramatically into a recreation place.
Mhm.
And it's not appropriate to add a foot of bentonite,
Absolutely.
sand and gravel on top of that,
You want
and
permeability.
then asphalt on top of that. That, to me, that makes no sense at all.
It's also
So-
important to remember that the covenants at no point mention increasing imperviousness. You simply require that we don't alter the surface permeability. So if you slightly reduce the permeability, that's your choice. We can't increase the permeability. That's the only thing we can't do.
Okay.
So if you cover some crappy asphalt that's highly porous at this point,
Yeah.
with 2 or 3 feet of some sort of fill that has a rate of infiltration, well, we've actually still slowed down the
Absolutely.
the imperviousness of it, or the perviousness of it. We've slowed it down. At no point do we need to encapsulate in those terms. We want to cap it, we want to cover it, we want to fill it, we want to grow stuff, we want to designate hard surfaces
Mhm.
from not parkable surfaces. But we don't have to use any material of any particular description because it's not in the covenants.
So that's, if I can touch on that very quickly. So when I did talk to Pine Tree, and Julie's going to correct me when I'm wrong, Pine Tree's not going to specifically, unless we recommend a material, Pine Tree's going to make a recommendation for the material. And if the committee doesn't like the material they recommend, or say, can you consider this material, then they'll give thoughts on that material. So bentonite's not by default going to happen unless everyone here says, make this out of bentonite. They might choose asphalt.
Well,
They might choose some
I'm
other
just saying,
material.
this has a way of snowballing and being
Right.
carried along for no legitimate purpose
Absolutely.
anymore. It was a good idea when it was going to be grass and flowers.
But don't we want to
now it's different.
choose what we want the finished surfaces to be, and then Pine Tree works back from there?
Right. So,
The solution.
Exactly.
so that's
It's
what,
an outcome oriented
right.
assessment.
If the committee said, turn it into a grassy field, then they would have recommended material so that it could be covered and then you could get some grass through there. If, this northern area is going to have, or whatever direction we're talking about is going to be parking, they're going to pick something that's better for parking. And then for the foundation where the courts are going to be, they're going to recommend something that's better for the courts.
It doesn't have to be all or nothing, so.
Right.
That's the other thing. And we did talk about, maybe from an aesthetic standpoint, we'll see what your plan B is. Having half of it be parking, or a third is pretty yucky looking, and for most of the time, it won't probably be full. So could it be grassed over and overflow parking? That was,
You should ask.
Okay.
Jan.
that was the segue.
Excellent. I didn't pay her either.
Got a shill in the audience?
Yeah.
Karnak the Magnificent.
Yeah, there we go.
And
I had just,
Julie, I'll copy these and send them right to you afterwards, so we'll,
Barbara, just for clarification.
Yeah.
Where that pavilion is, what was next to it?
this is 30 by 60 rink, the ice rink or the ice rink, just, they're seasonal, you put them there, it's a place to put it during the winter. and then gets folded up and
What-
put away.
What if the pavilion was big enough so that you have one structure
Mhm.
and have the ability to have the rink in it?
The questionnaire I sent out,
In our minute,
the big enough to house the
meeting,
rink.
I'll call
yeah,
you later.
30 feet, and what do you
Uh,
need? Three
yeah,
or 4
love
feet
you.
on each
Bye.
side.
Yeah,
So
probably.
36 by, 70 probably.
Where's the town water hookup at that property?
Good question.
That would, like, I would expect it to be up near the,
Hofstas house.
near the building,
Yeah.
and so putting it back at the end of the parking lot's
No, that's.
Yeah,
not great. But the other one up front might
up
be,
there might be better.
yeah.
But if it were in that building, the building would be twice as big as what people thought the pavilion should hold. Just so you know.
It gets better.
But yeah,
I wouldn't say.
it could be bigger as
I'm
better.
serious.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I just have a question about the pavilion. Is this
Yeah.
just a
Yeah.
open shed-like structure?
Yeah.
There's no inbuilt orientation. So you could enter it on any side equally and you're covered.
Mhm.
Okay. As
Yeah.
opposed to a pavilion with like a stage area or where people would sit and listen as well.
Well, I
No.
was thinking the pavilion itself could be like the stage, and then you'd be sitting lawn chairs out on the lawn, kind of thing. But, you know.
There's no raised part within
Right,
the pavilion.
could be built, brought there, you know? Okay, so, this whole thing about this, intense concrete hardscape stuff, and then the wily woods back there. And the windsweptness of it, it's quite dramatic, the rest of the property. So this is what I was thinking. Best way to see this, I would like to. It's a little bit of a dream here, but this is what I'm thinking. Come in, entrance still in the same place. Basically, we have a one-way loop. It comes around, there's parking here, comes around. Parking to the front of the property. Drop off spot, you can enter, I should explain this, the advance plan, Max.
Yeah.
Um,
You just need me to pull up the flood fence.
yeah, the topo one. This heavy line here is basically.
This one?
This is restricted and this is not, yeah, so. Basically, I'm messing around with this. Because this does not tell me it's restricted, I've just been told by Max that all the hardscape and stuff. It should be maybe capped or not, maybe, so anyway, in a perfect world. I would like to get the parking towards the front of the property and
Yes.
towards the road. Come down, basically all of this, you can see through where I had the old parking lot comes to here. This could possibly become one of those, I don't know if we can have kids' play yard stuff here, but this building gets lopped off, we still have basketball, tennis, pickleball. Ice skating rink and or solar on this section of the platform. This could become a track loop, exercise spots along the way, maybe with kid stuff inside, but some sort of, activity, physical activity. So it's kind of going from the street, the city, and making its way back towards more natural. The pavilion is now due south, magnetic south, with solar panels on the front, and we have some solar panels running like this here, and this becomes entirely a field for bringing chairs, seeing a performance, picnicking, whatever. And then when I was thinking that this area here is a transition area, didn't bother drawing anything yet, would become, I would love to see some raised beds, some hugelculture or something that starts to show how we bring in native pollinators, that these can be grown, above ground and part of an education series. And this also becomes the beginning of this grouping of pine trees is so dramatic. I'm hoping we can work this out to be one of the entrances to the rest of the walkway. So what does this do for us? It Well, it foreshortens the amount, getting green to your eye sooner. Coming into a park, you associate parks with being fairly green. And, I didn't put trees around the perimeter here. I would like to, I didn't because I didn't know about what we needed to do for piercing into this asphalt. But again, this is beyond the area that was indicated. So it should be okay, but I don't know. We'll find out. But anyway, so we'd have a one-way loop here. The ways we'd use a big, wide, dramatic handicap type ramp, but it would be wide and it'd be a fun way to get up onto the platform from the parking here or coming in from the front. Basically, the old front door of the property.
So this is an elevated parking area here. Because that's about that's about a foot to 4 feet at that point of the asphalt. Correct?
It's gone. The old platform is gone.
Oh, removing it.
On
I
the,
don't know that we can remove that.
Well,
This
it's a
is what-
plan B.
This is what the hope was.
It's a
Oh,
plan
I
B.
see. I
That we
see.
take
Yeah,
this-
we can't remove any of that foundation.
Can't that be built up?
It could be an
Built up
elevated,
and
it could be an
then
elevated parking space. In other words,
It could be built up. You can't remove it, but you can build on top of it.
So if we meet it to where whatever height it's at, 4 feet, and then fill, maybe there's a
4 feet.
stone wall down there or something that's still
Still doable.
doable,
Yeah.
and then that's still.
well, I
It's.
find that much more, I'm not a shill.
No,
I find that so much more appealing. I mean, the other one, yes, we might need overflow parking every once in a while, but most of the time, I don't know how many spaces you have there. This would be adequate,
Yeah, I wrote it down, so I would in a convenient location, so I would be able to tell you. Where did I write it down? It should be right there. It's over 100, I believe, so.
That,
And the other
top,
one is like lots more. What's that?
that top pentagonal section, is that former pavement there that you're trying to
Yes.
turn green?
This
Yes.
right here is the line of the old pavement.
Yeah.
So I'm pulling it all the way to here,
You're
Okay,
covering.
so
like 160 feet, 170 feet.
I'm trying to think
Here.
of the consequences of trying to turn that into a green space because it's impervious now, or at least partially pervious. And if we were to cap it, it would create drainage issues and you would have to be able to water it because water could not percolate up from the subsoil.
On the other hand, it's also downslope and it will be irrigated by all the impervious surfaces upslope.
Upstream,
Yeah,
That's why it is actually viable.
so that's the question for the engineering.
That's
folks,
right.
yeah.
Or
So-
one of them.
So the other thing is too, that we're going down slope to, I mean, at a certain point, since it's gonna need a stormwater management system, does it get captured in a French type drain here and then off? Here's the swale here. I mean, does it get captured that way? Because this is a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
Presently, I think it's just all sheet flowing off the edges
Mm-hmm.
on the downslope side. There's a lot of elevation change across that whole
Yeah.
parking slope. And there's also a lot of reckless behavior that goes on back there because it's unsurveilled. It's a large enough area. Just see this sort of thing going on without eliminates unsurveilled, less surveilled parking areas. I'm just fond of it as a design.
yeah, I mean, I think the forest itself is doing a pretty good job buffering. I mean, it's a nice wide buffer, thank goodness, other than the two drainages, the swales.
I don't know if this is gonna work with that fort. It's too big a jump. Well, maybe it will, but I don't, it takes some thinking, but anyway, if we were to try to, well, the other thing that's kind of nice about it, we should probably make that a two-way, bring the parking up close, so this would be, the parking would be on the same level, less need for ramps and whatnot. But that maybe
Yeah.
could work.
So are those the kinds of questions the engineers have to advise us on? Because how do we know? I
Well,
don't.
Well, you mean as far as level changes?
Yeah, like having the parking all uniform with the courts and stuff,
Well,
or,
we can pretty much figure that out pretty quickly before we ask an engineer, because that's a design thing and we're not asking him to design for us. We're asking him to solve our problems of like getting the
drainage and
the
cap.
drainage, yeah. So if we, like this plan, you know, basically we could give it to him right away. We could to ameliorate this plan somewhat, we could ask him about expanding the center island of some greenery and doing something with it, as raised beds, just to kind of get us.
Remind me, how elevated is possibly the former propane tank area relative to the asphalt?
It wasn't too bad, 18 inches.
Was it?
Yeah. And I was basically thinking, you know, you even like Lincoln log, drop logs around to do a perimeter, interlock them and then start bringing fill in. You know, that's something not terribly expensive. So, you know, we could give him this plan right away and say we want more greenery here, and then we could push this back and say we'd like more greenery here, for instance, and that would be pretty straightforward.
I have a question. You had mentioned once before about if we're gonna put solar back there. And what you were mentioning about the town water, and then we can't disturb the soil. Is it possible to build, for lack of a better term, a concrete conduit, something that takes those power
So-
cables above ground, but in case so that they can be maintained, there's access to maintain them, but that we're not digging a trench. into
Right.
the soil.
Well, if it was
And
this
same with
plan
the
and
water
all,
pipes.
if this plan and all this stuff is, you can in fact dig in here and dig more here, then we could put, you know, the supply line wherever we want it,
I see.
because we've already made that decision that we can, this is more malleable on the side of the site. If it was, well, we don't have solar here because we're basically the building is, it's getting, the flat area is not that wide before it drops off pretty significantly, so it ends up not being a great place for solar.
There's lots of other options for solar around the Hobbs's house. I just heard a thing in Massachusetts now, they have incentives to combine pollinators and solar on the ground, you know, so I feel like. And we talked about that when we walk behind, or some of us walk behind the Hobbs's house. It's a flat field that would be very easy to maintain with some nice paths through it. Not that within the 2-acre piece, but all of that behind it. So that's another place I feel like there's a lot of options for solar on this.
If it's facing magnetic south, there's it can follow the terrain a little bit, but it will be going.
Well, this is fairly level behind the Hobbs's house, that section.
Max, can you move this up and magnify it?
I think, oh, look at the total, these are like 241. I see what you're saying, though. It's actually sloping north. Sloping southwest, and it's actually fairly level by the.
Yeah.
Right
Just-
behind
Just
it.
below the little stone wall
Yeah.
at Hobbs's, yes.
Anyway, it seems like there's a lot of options, and in between the Hobbs's house and the restricted area, there's also fairly level ground. If you look at the total mass, which is at one, I think it's at 1 foot. It's not very much.
Yeah,
I mean, you
page
did mention,
3. What?
we mentioned at one point of considering, and maybe that's not a consideration anymore, of putting solar on the roof of a pavilion if it ended up being a larger pavilion.
Well, you talked
That-
about
That's
that.
where it's kind of heading.
Yeah, so that's why, I mean, that's
Somehow.
why this yellow means it's all solar. Solar panels, and then it's on the solar roof, and that's facing magnetic south. But this is, since we're moving the grass forward, we're kind of moving this whole thing forward too. Away from the drop.
Or, I mean, I just aesthetically, I really liked what you did with the second, and it sounds like there may be a way to have that. I mean, just what you're doing with the pavilion in that green area and transitioning to the trail part.
Mhm.
So it sounds like there are ways to do something like that without just having to elevate the parking, right? That's the. I'm just curious.
So
what
I
we-
could do a hybrid very quickly tomorrow, kind of trying to get the parking up front. Oh, wait a minute.
Mm.
Do we want kids playing on something specifically here on this property?
Well, didn't we talk about that at one point?
We talked
The
about
last meeting?
Several times.
childcare,
No,
right? But, you know, I guess that's why up here on a, you know, new surface seemed like it would be fine. But do we, want to talk about, you know, play yards down on grass on a new grassy area? Is that okay, or are we encouraging that specifically, or just general people out on the grass? Okay,
Playgrounds, I built a lot of playgrounds in the Consumer Product Safety Commission compliant and so on, and being able for parents, parking and parents, the two Ps. Parents want to surveil the kids, but they don't want to be doing anything. So they need to be close and observing them, and the parking needs to be close too.
Mhm.
So we have to meet those, practical requirements.
Mhm.
But otherwise, I think everything down there at that end, where you suggested a filled surface down here, anywhere down there could be a playground, as long as it's forward and easily reached by parking and easily surveilled by parents who want to sit.
Mhm.
I know the problem with the upfront parking is the elevated footprint. And I know we've talked in the past about leaving the other driveway as a utility entrance. But is there a reason we couldn't put the parking on that side and then slope everything from the building back and turn that into grass? It's gonna put the parking on the other side, and I know that building's over there.
Yeah, and
But
this,
It would still be access to the courts and then the rest of it would be green space or whatever,
Mhm.
just another option.
Yeah. Yeah, right now it feels very backdoor
Right,
to whoever's there and to-
right. Everybody liked your design. We just couldn't put the parking up front because of the elevated footprint.
Mhm. Yeah, and I did actually think about, do we want to do this? You know, do this a kind of a one-way loop in and out or something, but I don't know, there's a lot of stuff in this alley. I don't know personally what needs to be protected for perpetuity or what can't be covered. It's a little bit of a question for me. Like, I've got a couple of things here that I can't figure out what they are on the legend. So having this be a public passageway is getting me a little bit, or having to be snowplowed.
I think those are water sampling wells. And I think DEP would frown on periodic samples for testing.
At grade, and some of them seem to be old bore sites, and I don't know if the bore sites have to remain accessible.
There's a lot.
I haven't been over there in a while.
There's a lot of vertical assets down there that look to me like attractive nuisances. I wouldn't want anywhere near the public, so I'm just hopeful that we'll be determining with the engineer what part of these things are legacy and removable. And I have no idea.
I'm guessing most are not, but that's gonna be a DEP question.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, I love the idea of transitioning, the harder scape in the front and grading back as any way that's possible. And, it could be that even like we talked about Waldeboro Day, overflow parking could be where the access road is on the left, for instance.
Is it possible to do a zero-scape in Maine?
What do you mean?
A dry, like cactus and such, things that don't need watering
Oh.
and weeding and such.
Not unless
Last
it's,
season was no
That's what they do in
problem.
Arizona.
Yeah, last
What-
season was no problem.
Well, what
Yeah.
grows down the desert of Maine? People grow that.
I don't know.
I've never been there.
Is there stuff that just doesn't require watering and care?
Prunus maritima it's hard to kill by.
What is it?
By Prunus maritima, beach plum,
Okay.
and it's sort of a native, but I don't know. I'm a little further up.
Yeah,
the
there's
coast.
a lot of shallow rooted things too.
and
like-
grasses that don't need too much. I mean, that's probably the easiest, you just mow it.
Yeah.
if you want that
So
feel.
this,
Yeah.
this plan shows in this, the public area, 162 parking spots. It's more than enough. I mean, you know, the other sort of compromise thing is I could zip this off and then utilize this piece of it where the pavilion is more open to the, and bring the solar down here too. You know,
You could bring
did
the
I hear something
pavilion
about-
forward, you could bring the pavilion forward too, to
Mhm.
reside on top of the former asphalt as well.
Mhm. And then have people look out to the back
Yeah.
if they're gonna gather, yeah, yeah. So did I see something about maybe 100 spots? Is probably okay, and then there's, you know, this kind of overflow parking here, if you like anywhere, if you know your way around, you can find your place to park, but does 100 sound right?
Sounds good to me. I remember counting at the Belfast City Park. And it wasn't even nearly that, you know, I mean, even places like Moose Point, some of the state parks, you know, that's comparable. So I just feel like we don't need to.
But it's not like the rest of the town is nearby to park, you know, walk to it.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's hard for me to imagine hundreds of people, except for once in a while, there'll be a big event. I mean, I don't know how much the farmers market drew at the
Parade.
town office. Yeah, the parade, but that's once a year. So
Once every 50 years, because we don't use that route every year.
right.
No,
So,
no.
and we've always used to do
Do
it
a
with the
shorter-
Yeah.
VFW.
Do the shorter loop.
VFW down to West Main Street
Right.
and down.
And then there's the school. I mean, there's so many other options.
But that could change if that's there.
But that shouldn't be
could,
the
but
purpose of
wanna-
this.
Designate a park around I mean,
Yeah, that's how I
honestly,
feel.
there has been zero input on Waldeboro Day 2024 to this point.
Oh, really?
So, yep.
Yeah, so I feel like that's not the
But
thing to
you said
design.
you
it
could
on.
do it.
So that would help.
So what do you think, guys? So shall I shorten the parking lot and see what we can get out of this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take a look about this change in grade. I don't understand how we're gonna do it, but
I don't either.
Yeah.
That's what
to the
I've asked that
engineer.
question.
yeah,
Shortening the parking lot and trying to expand that raised bed area a little
Mhm.
bit to make a little bit more of a green.
They're shifting the pavilion. I love the idea of the green field in front of the pavilion. I think that'll be really attractive.
Yes, yes.
In a bigger pavilion.
Right, somewhat
And a
bigger, yeah,
larger-
maybe.
you wanna get the ice skating rink in there?
I don't know.
That way.
I think the ice skating rink should be here. Easy access. For the man that has to maintain it. Right?
It works well right now.
Work well.
Not saying we won't move it.
That
but
could be later, yeah,
Later.
it doesn't have to be.
Later.
You can drive the Zamboni.
I don't have,
That's
I have to
right.
walk the Zamboni. Just a stick with the water comes out of, but no, it's pretty good setup out back here. Once I get I need help getting the rink up and going, but once it's up and going, it's easy to take care of because I have access to water and I'm here
Yeah.
and it
Right.
makes sense. I'm not saying it won't be there eventually, but it works really well right here for now.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Do you have a crew that helps you every
Yeah,
year?
Public Works helps me. It's just as long as they're not plowing for 3 days in a row. But I think the plan is tomorrow for them to come out and help me get the liner set up and then
But,
fill it and
setback.
wait for the cold. We missed
the cold.
we missed the cold
We
last
missed
week.
the cold last week.
Just the forces of rain.
Yeah,
Cheating on the-
no, we don't need rain on it. We fill it with the fire hose, so.
Max, a practical question, because of all of these things that I consider attractive nuisance and uncertainties. Elevated standpipes, some have locks on them, some don't. We have electrical boxes that are, I wouldn't even put it in my backyard, much less a public park. We have all of these relics. What's the process of determining what can be removed, what's viable, what's still in use?
We would have to talk with DEP and lead vans to see what has to stay there, like when we were talking about some of the pipes that are over here. Lead vans probably doesn't want to get rid of all of them, and if that's the case, maybe we can put up fencing around it that's locked off so that people don't just always go to it.
Yeah. Right.
We'd have to talk with them about that.
Yeah, it's pretty comprehensive fact finding that has to happen. We even found a extremely dangerous condition there of an open sewer. So it's a dosing chamber for the lagoon down below, and it's in that little copse of beautiful arborvitae. But it's wide open. Anybody could drown in it right now. I attempted to secure it unsuccessfully.
Yeah, I sent you the photo of that.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not gonna take much. One of your,
I would not try to do them on your own. If you do see those things,
I was just trying to jam it so it wouldn't be opened by anybody.
Yeah, he was just
Kidful.
trying to close the lid.
Yeah,
right.
Fair enough.
So that,
whoops.
that seemed wrong.
It's a dosing chamber of former wastewater.
Right.
So
uh,
in
that
terms of
assessment.
doing that, who do you get to deal with that piece that you're saying? I mean,
In the future, if someone does see that, please don't do it on your own.
No,
I
not
know
that.
But just let the town office know. We have to check with Max Lewick at DEP to see if we could just get Public Works to do it, or if we do have to get someone from Lead Vance down there.
no, but I meant just in terms of designing a park, dealing with all the pipe, the wellheads and who's the one that signs off, or I think we're gonna need advice on that from
We-
a hazardous
we would
waste
s-
person.
We would send the concept plan to Max Lewick and to Pine Tree. Pine Tree.
Pine Tree would actually do that.
Pine Tree would do their capping plan that keeps all this in mind.
Okay,
And then DEP to say, yeah, of course, tennis courts are fine there, or a pavilion, or I don't see go-kart on there, just pointing it out.
Oh, Max. I
That,
know.
that was,
that was Julie's idea.
yeah, that was like an early joke. Yeah.
Electric.
Electric go-karts.
Nothing stopping you from riding around once, yes?
So when there's a concept plan ready, we'll give one set to Pine Tree to start the work on the cap. And then we'll also give one to DEP so that they can confirm if this is good,
Right, and then someone.
or if they have any issues.
Right, so circling back to what Carl was bringing up. Do we need to tackle or address those things first?
The opened items, or
There's
Well,
a
I'm
suite,
talking about,
there's a whole suite of attractive nuisance items there. I don't know
Right.
what could be abandoned, what can't.
right,
And I mean, there's electrical hazards there. There's all sorts of stuff that somebody else's diligence it should be tackling, and we don't want to inherit those problems. And of
Right.
course, they're going to affect your concept plan. I just don't know what the path forward is for that. That seems to me more like a reconnaissance prior to even a plan being
Right.
submitted.
exactly.
so were any of those items in this area, or was
Yeah.
it
Oh,
somewhere?
they're all over
They're all,
the place.
they're all within.
There's a couple.
Okay.
There's some stuff over this
And
way.
Then
that
when
building-
this is,
Like, this is unlocked, that building's unlocked. It seems like it should be locked.
and you're announcing that in a public meeting that's being recorded.
Well,
Just trying to,
Just saying.
Tomorrow, Max.
just
Great.
transparent.
So,
that's. wrong.
so,
They could use
all of that is stuff we will, like, these items that are in the concept plan, we will have to notify. The ones that are outside of it, we can just let DEP know. And just say, we're in the process of doing the concept plan, this is just outside of it, but have to keep it and ask them.
I just want to submit one more time, maybe with more clarity. Once you know, you have an obligation. We all know. So is there an immediate assessment plan that we could launch and have some correspondence with?
If there is a comprehensive list of what people want to have, I would prefer that. I don't want to send Max, like this ground well test and then 1 week later ask about this one and then this one and then.
Well, then I'll volunteer to do a comprehensive site assessment,
I think
identify
you're
with
talking about two different things. You're talking about safety
all of these.
and you're,
You can't very well bring those active assets right there there are 3 vertical pipes and there's an unlocked building, but that's probably not a big hazard to walk on it. But there's a lot out there that's going to affect everything we do within the restricted area. And many of those things could very well be resolved by a dialogue between DEP and Lead Vance. But I don't think anybody's looking at it right now.
I think that's important.
I agree.
the legend on that plan is not 100% how things are designated on the.
That's through us both, yeah,
Yeah.
through me. So I will,
You're willing to walk around and do that?
Let me ask DEP first, and
What's
Julie had to leave for her physical therapy, so let me ask Julie tomorrow morning.
that's what I would like to know. What is the path forward?
Before it snows.
It does feel like it's an essential step
Mhm.
to do this. And, you or a professional who knows what they're looking at, I feel like that needs to happen as soon as
Yeah, and
possible.
I don't know what I'm looking at.
Yeah, that's, I'm
First of all,
thinking,
no, I don't like it.
yeah.
But
I was go-
Advance and the DEP would
And they
actually
will.
know.
Yeah,
what
they
you're
should
looking
know,
at.
yeah.
It seems like it's logical. that
Yeah,
they
those,
would be able
those,
to take a
vape,
look.
those vapor chambers that are just little fiberglass cowlings, I'm hopeful they can also go away.
The
And
dog houses?
Yeah, the dog houses,
Okay,
I'm hopeful.
okay, there, that's what I've got highlighted here.
Yeah, they're,
So-
they're problems for that, for your plan.
No,
I was thinking of giving you Joe Cornach's name. He used to sort of ad hoc member of the committee, and he was an environmental engineer who usually worked for the industry side, but he's the one who helped to decipher all the engineering reports. And he might be a good person for you to reach out to. He's always been really receptive. His brother lives in Marlborough. And he comes up here often, but
Follow Max's lead on.
he might be able to help you interpret stuff.
Let me ask Max Lewis first and then
Okay.
we can get that going.
Yeah, thank you. So I feel very good about that.
One other question we might ask, and this is probably off the wall, but I'll ask it anyway. They're still treating the water, are they not?
That's a good
Minimally.
question.
Very
How
minimally.
often are they monitoring those wells
They,
or actually sampling?
well, if I'm assuming the answer to this question is
Oh, you're
yes.
talking about treatment.
I'm talking about treatment, the vapor tower.
Right.
That blow off the contaminant. After that water's been treated, it goes into the river.
Yeah.
Why can't that be diverted, assuming it's clean, to water the lawn? If that's what we're gonna do.
That's an interesting. Not sure how much
Well,
water
except
there
that
is.
they're
It's
treating it for volatiles, and
Yeah.
if you spray it on the lawn, it's
No,
gone.
no,
Well,
presumably the
People are gonna be
volatiles-
exposed to
But
it.
if you're
they-
testing it, the volatiles are gone.
Gone.
Oh,
Assumption is
with
they're
that
gone.
lawn, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So they got
That's a lot of water.
a scrubber there?
Yeah.
Or a, yeah,
It's a stripper tower.
stripper
Stripper,
tower.
and then it just goes
Yeah.
into a ditch and
Yeah.
off it goes.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Be a good way of recycling it, without doubt.
where's the location of that, Bob?
sorry,
Where is the location of that here?
stripper, it's not, it's
It's a
tower.
it's a tall cylinder beside one of the buildings there.
As you go on the second entrance, further down from the one across from the bowling alley. It's the,
Yeah,
water.
you go into that entrance and it's off the back between the Hofstas house and the
Yeah.
I think it must
property
be
line.
up here. With a funny little A-frame.
Near,
Yes.
near the wood frame
where that
shed,
is.
yeah.
Wasn't that in the works to get stopped in the pretty near future, since
It's
it
not-
wasn't
they're
really
hardly taking
removing anything
anything.
anymore?
They did stop one. There was a soil vapor extraction system, which I think they shut down.
If they
But
shut
I-
it down, then my question's moved.
Yeah, not sure about the, not sure about the stripper tower.
Okay.
And actually, we haven't gotten a report from
And
Leadvance about their monitoring in a long time.
Supposed to be once a year now. They went from 4 times a year to once a year. I think it's not due yet, but soon.
Have we gotten
It was
one
a
since
spring
the
thing.
redevelopment committee reconvened?
Thought we got one last spring.
Yeah,
Julie sent it around, but
Did
I
we?
can't,
I thought it was around spring,
Yeah.
like.
because I remember there were questions in the early days of the committee and that was spring, and that's when that's what I thought.
So that's a good thing, isn't it? That they at least feel the need to sample it once a year?
Well, it's only because it's taking almost nothing out, so it's not doing any good. They said it would be hundreds of years at the rate they're going to remove the
Oh.
contaminants. So it's not that there's nothing there, it's just it's not effective,
I see.
which is too bad, but that's the reality.
So
So Max, based on what Julie has said about the impervious surfaces, should I not expand the lawn on the proposed plan?
You mean having the lawn come out this way?
you're only covering, you're not, in fact, you're,
I'm
if anything,
leaving A little bit,
Yeah, if you're covering it, that's fine.
yeah.
covering this, yeah.
Yeah. Covering's fine. But like, I think she was talking about like this whole thing where it's being removed. That was where she was about to get a heart attack.
All right,
The
Covering.
the concrete.
let's
Yeah.
paint it green, okay,
Paint it green. That's what we did.
Yeah,
okay.
Can you imagine, somehow bringing vehicles around in this plan and then having a parking space that's elevated? I mean, have you seen that before? Is it something we could actually think about accomplishing? Really getting that to be an elevated parking area?
It's getting back off of it in time for the road and making a turn to get. It's tight. There'll be a few tight corners in it, and this may not be the right size for a useful parking layout. You know, you'd be stuck with this dimension.
Barbara, what do you need for a next iteration besides
If
time
anyone
to
has
think?
any strong feelings, you should tell me now, because I'm just gonna wing it with a little bit of a hybrid here and see what happens, and I'll send it to Max, and if he's okay with sending it to everybody.
Yep.
I can feel like I've brought up more confusion than.
I'll just add one more piece of confusion.
Okay. Please do.
We were talking about engineering and hazards identification. I know nothing about the foundations of those buildings that we're planning on building on. Are those slabs on grade? In which case I wouldn't have any problem at all. But if those are structural slabs with any sort of space, you know, there's a lot of spalling on that concrete right now. Is it structurally stable? Do we have a record plans of that building?
An as-built.
An as-built record plan?
Is there a prior document before the remediation?
They did do test holes, so that might give us some information about the bores, right? Are there records of
Those were looking for contamination.
yeah, but it still tells you something. What was it going through?
Would that
If they
be,
did boreholes through the concrete,
Yeah.
that would give us a lot of information.
Right.
so is that
Is
something,
it something
again,
we
the
need to
engineer?
answer, or would the engineer? be able to-
Well, the engineer would, before he puts anything on top of it, he's gonna want to know what's underneath it.
And that's something they can't determine while they're doing the study.
Well,
I mean, it would help to have some data, but
it costs money to do boreholes.
Yeah.
You know, everything costs money.
It sure seems like it's the slab on grade.
Yeah.
You know, it's what.
I don't know whether there's a basement under there.
Yeah, no.
Oh, no.
No, there's no
I'm
basement.
pretty confident
I
about
was pretty
that.
confident about that.
Because I've walked every elevated edge of every.
Okay, there's no stairs, there's no elevator.
I didn't see any
No,
vortex or,
Okay.
dwelling or a bulkhead.
There is a lot of settling where slab met, floor met floor,
Yeah.
with all that grid that's there and greenery's growing up. So it may be that even though these aren't a lot of weight, but the 10-foot chain link fences, I assume that the bottoms have to be weighted. They're not gonna be drilled into the slab. So there are some point loads across there, but what would you have to do to strengthen the material? Well, it's obvious the engineer would have to deal with that.
Max, do you know if there are any plans where they did borings through the concrete that you're aware of?
Well, we have the magical wall in the back that has everything. And by that, I mean, there's probably some plans back there that are lost in the wall. So I'd have to go digging, but probably.
Don't
Well,
they actually have the bore samples stacked up next to one of the sheds? Find the number and see what it looks like.
I can dig and see what I can find.
DEP may even be able to help with that, I would think. I mean, they were and the engineer said, I mean, they were the ones who required some of these things to be done, so hopefully they interpret them. We might have it in background files.
Yeah, did you have anything besides that survey that you sent me, and that just had this part of the foundation on it, but you don't have any other plans for building?
That
from
the land survey?
Yeah.
I didn't have anything else.
I just want a bigger pavilion.
One that covers the whole concrete slab.
Not huge, but bigger.
But big.
I agree.
I love that you went with a small.
The 250th anniversary
See, I like.
of
the
Waldeboro
I
Day.
just have a question then. Why do you want a big one and why do you want a small one? What's the difference for you
Size.
No,
in the use of the pavilion?
for me, I really also am concerned about transitioning from a very active concrete centric area to a wild contemplative walking area. So having smaller things in the back rather than bigger structures in the back makes sense to me.
And it's kind of relative. That's the size of a barn.
Yeah,
The small one's the
that's
size of a
small.
barn. Yeah.
That's small.
And if it's big, if it's super big, at a certain point, you're gonna be in deep shade when you're in there, which sometimes is good, but sometimes it's like, that's a lot of shade to be in.
I guess what I'm saying is that there's a compromise there that will accommodate more than, 75 people.
But what activities do you see tied to the number of people?
Concerts,
Right.
farmers market, possibly weddings, celebrations. Where's my list?
Okay.
There's
Okay.
other kinds of open markets we
Oh, yeah.
batted
I
around.
mean,
Yeah, I know.
we don't
understand.
wanna, because if you build it too small, then you can say, oh, geez, we could have done this, but we can't.
Yeah.
It's not big enough. And if you were around for Waldeboro's 250th anniversary, and you're standing out in the field, getting absolutely drenched,
Oh, what are you talking about? It was sunny that day.
I stood out in the rain.
you stood out with that.
I went through a few pairs.
I was there for the whole weekend, and it was a shame.
But there couldn't have been a pavilion big enough
No,
there couldn't have been a pavilion big enough for everyone to
No.
not get wet.
but it might have been a little better than having everybody soaking wet.
Well, it's big enough to house the ice skating rink.
But I'm not gonna be alive for the next the 300, so I don't really.
Yeah. 10 square.
At least
feet.
I don't think.
It's over 250 people it would house, so that's a lot of.
For what?
A lot of people. If it was big enough to house also the ice skating rink.
So
It's
what are
the
you
size,
looking at?
so-
What are you,
so-
what are you talking about?
35 by 70.
Which is the size of the
That's a
Hidden
big old
Valley.
pavilion. It's
That's
a
big.
Old pavilion.
That's good.
I think your problem solved.
I think right there.
What is the current size that you have on them?
Well, this little guy, and this one was a little bit bigger, like 26 by 32.
But the other thing is, if you have a once in 200-year or 50-year event, you can have tents too. So I mean, there's
That's
options for big events, you just expand on the pavilion.
The
So
tents are incredibly expensive. Like thousands.
And you have to put stakes in the ground.
Oh, God, then you gotta drive stakes. You think that?
I would just say, I
Just
think,
say-
I think that
Asphalt.
maybe a little bit bigger is not a bad thing, but
Right.
there can be a too big, certainly.
yeah,
But I also just wanted to respond to the question of transition, to the wooded space. In the second plan, what I liked was that the pavilion and the space in front of it where people gather is acting as that transitional space
Yeah.
between the road, the parking, the sitting, and then the walking.
yeah.
There's a transition of activities. And I think that you can really think about the use of the pavilion as sort of transitional in its many activities that it offers. And thus it's kind of a pivot to the entire space itself, so that the space itself is not simply recreation, but it's, as you were saying, contemplation. So what activity or building or marker on the space can be a kind of embodiment of this transition between recreation and contemplation? A pavilion that houses a concert or a talk, those are kinds of activities that are both recreational, active, and also contemplative.
Yeah.
And so there's a certain symbolism that could be used in its placement, as you did in the second plan, and how the size and then the activities people come to associate it with, that would actually facilitate the understanding of the whole site as cohesive. And so to make too strict demarcations between, this and that, I think doesn't allow one to appreciate the scope of what is being offered here.
And do you see the initial one being too sharp for transition?
I do.
I think so too.
It could nudge back, but yeah, there's a.
Definitely. I mean, that green in front is what makes it a difference.
And the angle too, I think is really
Yeah, I
important.
really like
Yeah,
that.
Yeah.
it really helps, yeah.
It's appealing, yes.
Edge is a complete line.
Is there a reason you faced it that direction?
And this one,
Yes.
solar cell,
So,
this
Yeah.
is all solar.
Oh, solar.
Right.
Okay.
Those are the solar panels, and
Yeah.
that roof would also housing.
Gotcha. I like the angle, but my thought was the other side so that it was closer to the parking and facing the field away, but I like it that way too.
I thought of that too, actually. I think that's a good idea. I just didn't know in terms of the slope on the
Yeah.
other side of it.
Yeah.
So move all this forward and have the sitting area be behind it.
Yeah,
So the field be behind it.
yeah,
Yeah, this way I was thinking that it could be more farmer's market.
yeah, exactly. That's the
front.
benefit of that. But then there's this other,
Yeah.
the other direction is interesting too, also because of noise. I mean, not that that road is so noisy, but you know, when you start having, I've been to a lot of outdoor concerts, and when cars are too close, like it's really obnoxious. You can't hear people, you know, speak or play an instrument. And so you're really shooting yourself in the foot if you're setting it up so that they're competing in noise. So turning the pavilion the other way, you're already
Facing.
facing the sound or whatever's going on in that towards the water direction. But if it's, yeah, but I don't know what the spatial issue is, you know, in terms of how much seating you could still have or green space you could still have.
I guess if I was gonna do that, I'd move the building over here more.
Yeah,
You know, if this
And-
became the demarcation, and does that become too much of a wall? You're
Yeah,
going
right,
down
yeah.
and then you're seeing
Yeah,
solar
yeah, I know.
panels and-
Yeah, it looks so inviting the
What's-
way you have it.
Right.
And
What's
that's-
the
Yeah,
deal
it
with
does
the solar panels?
What's the deal?
Yeah. So why are we putting solar panels there? We talked about lighting, but then said no. So what are the solar panels for?
It was kind of part of the schemes that I saw initially talking about that we could possibly do solar panels somewhere on the site. A solar array.
To contribute to the town's energy was the idea. I mean, it doesn't have
Okay.
to be there, but some sort of, and that was our original recommendation with Sylvania, was to have a solar farm on the property, because what else can you do? So the idea is to blend the two and make some income for the town. But it doesn't have to be there. Again, it could be on the other side of the
I
house.
thought it was for the lights, but then I thought we weren't doing lights.
No.
I know
it could
in
be
the
for
in the
whatever.
vote, it was solar failed miserably in the election votes, right? Am I wrong with that?
What was that?
The election, the survey, like the
warrant article.
warrant article,
Warrant
what
article.
people want to
Wasn't
see
a
there,
vote,
like
it was a
was
survey.
solar way
Yeah, it
way
was a
down.
survey.
Was a survey.
Survey.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
On our survey, it wasn't low. I mean, didn't we have solar on the survey?
We're talking about the November warrant and everything, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was talking about.
Oh,
I'd have to look back at the results. I think it was on a lower end of it, but there was also like 3 different categories for solar.
Gotcha.
Battery
Like,
storage.
Yeah, I think the one, it was somewhere in the same area, but I think the one you're talking about was like blocking off a part and then leasing it or selling it off to a third party person.
Gotcha.
There wasn't, yeah.
And I mean, in terms of solar, if it's to help with the town's energy, we could just expand on what we have over at the landfill right now, because it's a spot where we could put solar there as well.
That could definitely be a future phase too.
Yeah,
It's not-
I just was confused by it. I thought it was for the lighting there. I
Yeah.
thought that was the
Yeah, and I think
Well,
in the spring was that survey. It was the survey, well, what do you think we could do out there? And I think that's maybe that's.
yeah, the
where we
November,
had rated.
Yeah,
people
that-
did notice.
Yeah.
that's the one I think everyone is talking about right now, where it went out in November and it was like a ranked choice type thing, because everyone loves ranked choice.
I just remember it being negative, except for commercial. I mean, having.
I'd have to find the results.
We eliminated it because of the issue of having to
The
expand.
capacity, yes, the substation was the issue.
Well,
As
yeah,
a,
go ahead.
as a major.
So depending on orientation. Could a pavilion accommodate solar?
Solar roof.
Solar
Yeah,
roof.
That's why I've got the
That's
yellow
what's good.
star top here, and assuming that it's all gonna continue across. Freestanding and then across the roof, yeah,
Oh, freestanding as well.
that's how it's drawn right now.
Okay.
So if this,
We don't know how much.
it's sort of a compromise to both ends. If this just moves up a little bit further, there's then more green space in the back
Behind
as
it.
well, right?
Mhm.
And there still has green space up here.
Mhm. I don't know if people are gonna really use the green space in the back. It drops off, you see the grade, it just drops off pretty quickly and it's pretty scrubby and it's kind
It's
of.
very steep and very brambly.
Yeah.
I
very-
know.
Yeah,
It's
so,
not, it's not a place you'd sit.
Yeah.
for-
My only thought about switching sides was that it was closer to parking, but I do like where it is. It does leave the space out, because it does drop off, it's a big hill.
Yeah.
And that's exciting, but that's like a choice you wanna make, not, have kids rolling down the hill.
Bob, you know better than I about the solar, to get back to your question. It's CMP is limiting the amount that can be installed
Substation. is the
because of the
limitation.
substation
Yeah,
up
they have.
by
yeah,
Borealis Spreads.
They have to do work on the substation.
Yeah.
And the state's working on
Yeah.
changing that, but they're not there yet.
And that's a very long distance.
Yeah, that can be an option.
But I mean, the CMP's commitment to making improvements to the capacity of the substation, that's extremely long term. That's
I
not
haven't seen
something.
a timetable from them at all.
Okay.
There's legislation trying to
Oh,
change that
Right,
because
it's
so
not-
many
it's
towns are
not
being
their
hamstrung
commitment,
by
right?
it, yeah.
oh, I see.
And
I see.
businesses are being hamstrung, they can't hook up because they've had capacity, so it's a problem.
I hate to muddy the waters, but
You are.
we've got that raised platform in front of your green area. I mean, we're trying to figure out how to deal with that. We suggested parking maybe, whatever. What if that part of the raised platform sat in as a substitute for, I don't want to say the gazebo. I don't like that word.
Have a
But-
building up on the.
A performance area that's elevated that people then look up to. It's easier to see up than it is to see down because you got people in front of you, but if you're looking up, it's easier to see. Does that make any
Well,
sense at all?
You've got the road right behind it,
Noisy.
people going by on Friendship Road pretty quick.
I mean, if
But if you face it
The other way.
the other
you face
way,
the other way, then
Got
you
you're,
have a sound barrier built into the structure
Yeah.
itself. You're also then putting parking behind, so it's not the first thing you see when you go by. You see the courts and then a stage, pavilion, what have you.
I'm thinking of the Esplanade in Boston.
So you'd need places to sit way up close to,
Yeah, and then the parking
Back
behind
away.
that.
yeah, and then the parking way behind. Um. Maybe, and actually, this is a lower level than this, so maybe that, and that's 70 feet long right there, and it's pretty big. Maybe that becomes, and so can we get rid of that? Okay. To create greenery, to get places to sit, and then put parking there. Possibly,
It's the primo seats, that's where,
Yeah, that's the box.
and then, do you control basketball sounds, tennis ball, pickleball sounds, if you're having that in the afternoon here, and how do you, those competing things?
I mean, it's a potential conflict, although I don't think it's a conflict that you would want to allow to shape the entire design.
Yeah, I think
You
it's,
could do bought shrubbery too, as a sound barrier, like arborvitae's or whatever,
Mhm.
you know?
We don't know, we have a growing medium that will accommodate any.
No, but-
large structure.
Well, we
You
already
could
have
box
gaps
them.
along the road,
No, elevated, oh, yeah, well, I
You know what I
suppose.
mean?
Yeah.
I suppose.
Because you may have to do that on the road too, with the maples. But you may need to have some other kind of a sound barrier
Mhm.
as
Well,
well.
if you have a hat show, like the hat show.
Well,
That you
Yeah, we
block.
could do
I'm talking about a little pavilion, now you're talking. Jeez.
Or you wanna
Bring the
pick-
Boston Pops around here.
I'm talking to Mike. I'm talking to Mike.
I think she needs to evolve into this.
Yeah, so it is 6 o'clock and we should probably think about wrapping up the
Oh.
conversation to make sure that Barbara has what she needs.
Still waiting on one more member, but I do have a 6 o'clock meeting in here.
Yeah.
do you feel like you have enough? I mean, did you also mark sketches for us or?
Yeah, definitely, I'm gonna have to provide the sketches for you, right, next?
Inundated.
Yeah.
What the heck, yeah, so I'll send something as a compromise thing, I'll explore a little bit moving. I just don't think it's gonna work, parking on that raised area. Anyway, I'm gonna do something that is, I don't know, it is a hybrid, it's not closer to one thing or the other, so we'll see what happens.
Would you explore putting the pavilion up front?
We're in the middle age like that.
It would definitely limit the thing about having it in the back is that if kids want to run around, they can run down the trails, they can do, they can go do stuff.
Yeah.
There's this spillover effect. You're not have to be there the whole time, whereas when you're up here, you're gonna be surrounded by parking. And how do you want to control the safety issues of that? And I just don't see why that pavilion can't also host events. The concert, or if we're gonna build it anyway, let's build it especially if it gets bigger. We'll have to have big enough to put a stage on it.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes more sense to me. Let's just
Okay, I
build
just
one
wanted to
thing.
hear what how you would respond to that. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I think there'll be a lot more meetings too about the pavilion. Once this starts getting more.
You have a pavilion committee.
Well, we didn't even get to where your
Oh,
true
yeah,
experience
maybe
is. We have a historic house that we're going
I
to
know,
be,
I know.
you know,
Maybe the RFP
discussing.
next time. We
Yeah,
can-
I can
If
still,
it doesn't go out.
I can still give these out tonight and people can take a look at them.
Oh,
open
Is
up.
that a?
Is this the new one?
Is
I
this ready to
believe,
go?
I believe
What is-
Julie printed them off.
What's the date?
Was
on it?
this
Oh,
December
that's-
13th?
That's the
Yeah.
one that.
Okay.
that's revised.
Or the briefing.
Is it now released?
I do not believe it's
We
been
talked about
released
doing
yet.
it in Jan.
One-
Julie and I were
One
pretty,
that's on the website tonight is still the one from October.
Right.
Yep.
maybe it is. Julie and I were very busy last week, so I don't know if was released or not, but I think it was.
I'm gonna leave that with you.
So the select board agreed to
I think the select board
release,
agreed
re-release it.
to demolish, salvage, move it to another place. I mean, the RFP encapsulates
Right.
all of those options.
Do we now need to vote to accept that
I
today?
think the select boards voted on the concept already.
Okay,
So it's really up to Julie and Max to get it out there.
Okay, so
So
we
we
had just
don't have
have
to vote on it.
we had just recommended to the select board that they
you-
re-release the
I think
RFP.
we
and
don't
that
think-
happened.
Yeah.
Okay,
And I'm giving a copy of the different links and things I found to Gail.
Cannot.
Okay,
maybe they
That'd
can
be-
get
if anyone else has a listing of places to advertise the new RFP to, just send them to me and I'll compile them. and send them forward.
They're advertising on TV, Baldwin Home Buyers.
Oh, look
So-
at you.
They pay cash.
For you.
Pay cash.
I got your links. For the sake of the rec committee.
And there's some duplication.
You got a committee.
Okay.
We gotta get out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we gotta get out.
Trevor's here. I'm not sure if this.
So the next meeting is January 8th.
I could only use the bathroom.
January 8th,
Yeah.
I believe that's right.